Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Bala Girivanadari Jaya Gopijana Bala Girivanadari Jaya Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Bala Girivanadari Jaya Gopijana Bala Girivanadari Jaya Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajakacharya Asatara Satasisi Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories of Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. So today we're reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, text 56, correct? Chapter 2. Chapter 2, text 56. Seitina janera tumi parama āśraya. Tumi mūla Nārāyaṇa ithe saṁśaya. Seitina janera tumi parama āśraya. Tumi mūla Nārāyaṇa ithe saṁśaya. Seitina janera tumi parama āśraya. Tumi mūla Nārāyaṇa ithe saṁśaya. Seitina janera tumi parama āśraya. Tumi mūla Nārāyaṇa ithe saṁśaya. tumi mūla Nārāyaṇa ithe saṁśaya. Ladies? Seitina janera tumi paramas āśraya. Tumi mūla Nārāyaṇa ithe saṁśaya. Sei, these, Tina, three, janera, of the plenary portions, tumi, you, parama, ultimate, āśraya, shelter, tumi, you, mūla, primeval, Nārāyaṇa, ithe, in this, ki, what, saṁśaya, doubt. Translation: you were the ultimate shelter of these three plenary portions. Thus, there is not the slightest doubt that you are the primeval Nārāyaṇa. Purport: Brahmā has confirmed that Lord Kṛṣṇa is the supreme, the source of the three manifestations known as Kṣīrodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, and Kāraṇodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, Mahā-Viṣṇu. For his pastimes, Lord Kṛṣṇa has four original manifestations, namely Vāsudeva, Saṅkarṣaṇa, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. The first puruṣa-avatāra, Mahā-Viṣṇu, in the Causal Ocean, who is the creator of the aggregate material energy, is an expansion of Saṅkarṣaṇa. The second purusha, Garbhodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, is an expansion of Pradyumna, and the third purusha, Kṣīrodakaśāyī Viṣṇu, is an expansion of Aniruddha. All these are within the category of manifestations of Nārāyaṇa, who is a manifestation of Śrī Kṛṣṇa. You can repeat the translation. You are the ultimate shelter of these three plenary portions. Thus there is not the slightest doubt that you are the primeval Nārāyaṇa. I saw a photo the other day, Srila Prabhupada giving class from this place. He also gave class from this area of the temple. There's not the slightest doubt. Doubts. Doubt is something we all have to deal with. Prabhupada at one time, Los Angeles, for some reason, New Dwarka, Los Angeles. That was the world headquarters when I became Srila Prabhupada's personal servant. So it was a very active place, very nice climate, very often like spring. Didn't get too hot, didn't get too cold. A month or two it could be chilly. But it was very pleasant there. And Srila Prabhupada, he liked it there. He spent, in the United States, I believe he spent more time there than anywhere in New Dwarka. One time we arrived there after traveling. We would arrive after traveling in India. To be in India, of course, was not such an easy thing. Even Prabhupada here in Vrindavan, he complained, all my disciples are getting sick. Srutakirti is sick. He said he needs to go back to the US. He said Bhardaraj is sick. He said everything. He said, it's not very nice. We arrived in Los Angeles once, and you'd walk up the stairs to his flat, and he'd look out the window. And I was Grahasta at the time, and he said, so Srutakirti Maharaj, how do you like it here in Los Angeles? And he knew I was very fond of it there, because everything was easy there. To perform service there, not very difficult. People were waiting at the door to do something. What can I do for Prabhupada? What can I make for Prabhupada? What can I prepare? Different offerings they would want to make. India was not like that. You couldn't get anyone to do even Prabhupada's laundry. In the West, they would do Prabhupada's laundry, they would do my laundry. But here, they wouldn't even do Prabhupada's laundry. They were just trying to survive. So it was a very pleasant place. And sometimes he would just, in the afternoon, one of the amazing things with Srila Prabhupada, he never looked overwhelmed in service. Sometimes we get that feeling, we have so much to do. Somebody asks you to do something, I can't, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. Prabhupada, I would see him sitting behind his desk, chanting, see him walking around the room, chanting. In the afternoon, see him reading his books. And he was doing everything. We noticed Chaitanya Charitamrita. He began it sometime in the spring of 1973. He finished it, I believe it was Rama Kadasi, in November 1974. 17 volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita in just about as many months. He completed it. In addition to doing Srimad Bhagavatam every evening, he finished the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He never looked like he was overwhelmed with his service. He was happy. Sleep he hated. He said, I hate sleep. Just a waste of time. Who here can say that? Who here hates sleep? Do you hate sleep? He was scratching himself. I don't hate sleep. I look forward to that time. Finally, rest. Everything finished. If I can let go of all the disturbance in my head from dealing with everyone all day long. That's how I think. Can I rest even? I used to manage Govinda's restaurants, one of the first Govindas. And then Prabhupada sent me to manage other Govinda restaurant. You would close 9 o'clock at night. In your head, you would just buzz for hours dealing with everyone. So many customers coming in. You have to be nice to everyone. Even you don't want to be. You have to be. Prabhupada seemed everything was very nice. Everything went along very nicely. One day he called me in. So many days he would call me in and say things. One day he called me and he said, none of my disciples believe that Krishna is God. Such a heavy statement. If I ask everyone, will say, yes, I accept it. We all accept. But do we perform our service like we accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So many instructions Prabhupada has given us. I was thinking today, what to say today, Prabhupada, these translations and purports. You're talking about, when I came 1971, I would look at those words, I couldn't even say them. Kṛṣṇa, Viṣṇu, Garbhodakaśāyī. We would look at these words this long. We didn't even know how to speak. But we accepted. And we accepted Prabhupada's instructions. We didn't know anything except to serve his instructions, to serve his order. Now it's almost the other way. Everyone can say everything, do everything, but those instructions. I say, most chastisement I ever received, all of us received in Prabhupada's presence, those that were fortunate enough to travel with him, we were chastised for sleeping. First instruction, rise early in the morning. By 4 o'clock, everyone should be awake. How difficult is that one simple instruction to rise, attend Mangal Artik. And many times I said when I came here, I was with Prabhupada for a few weeks. We came to Radha Damodar temple. I was rising early in the morning. I was new devotee, 1 year. I was very enthusiastic. I thought I was Krishna conscious. So I was getting up early in the morning, no difficulty. But my godbrothers, it was a little more difficult. They had been around for 6-7 years by then. Things change. To keep that same determination. Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is easy. Determination, difficult. To keep that same determination when we first come, understand, we have no doubts Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But by our activities, we can see, actually, do we have doubts? Prabhupada said, none of my disciples believe Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such an amazing statement. But I can understand it. Because if I accept that, every instruction coming down through the Shastra, every instruction from the spiritual master, I'm going to follow that. We come here in the temple. I remember in New Dwarka years later, 10 years later, we had a saying, 7 o'clock tilak. That means you would come into the temple for greeting the deities and you could see when your tilak was put on. Was it put on at 4 o'clock in the morning or you had 7 o'clock tilak? Nice fresh tilak. And the really smart ones, they would put it on and then smudge it up a little bit. So you didn't detect they were sleeping like babies, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. No, it wasn't possible. As he traveled, lazies and crazies, Prabhupada would say. We don't want lazies and crazies. Everything is here. These descriptions, so amazing. You have to look at it, some of these things, you think, this can't be made up. Who could make up such philosophy? So many stories. How can they not be real? I always say Australia. After I was with Prabhupada for over 2 years, I was being tested. It wasn't so easy. Or that attentiveness that's there initially. We're so attentive, we're so eager, so enthusiastic. Some of you might think, oh, well, you're with Prabhupada. It was always wonderful to be with Prabhupada. It was always wonderful, but it was also very difficult because he didn't compromise. He didn't say, well, yeah, it's okay. Let him sleep. It's not my business, as long as he does his service. No, that wasn't Prabhupada's attitude. As long as you do your service wasn't good enough. You had to be up first thing in the morning. Australia, 3 different occasions in 2 weeks, calling me into the room. Devotees are sleeping. And he would see it. He would become very disturbed. Because he saw, you're going away. You don't understand. You don't have faith. Doubts are there. Otherwise, why are we sleeping? And that's when he was translating 5th canto about the universe. So many things he said. And he said when questions would mount, once Paramahamsa said to him, Paramahamsa Swami, he would, on the morning walk, Prabhupada would ask questions, or he would ask questions. And Prabhupada liked that. He liked those challenges. We say the devil's advocate. And Prabhupada would sometimes ask those questions. He would play the devil's advocate to see what your response was. And Paramahamsa said, Prabhupada, it's described that the sun goes behind Sumeru mountain. So how is it it's sunny on some areas? There's always sunshine somewhere on the earth planet. If the sun's going behind Sumeru mountain, how is that? Prabhupada didn't respond for a moment. Then he said, Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, it's just very brief description. He said, that's in other Vedic literatures, all these descriptions. He said, but Sukadeva Goswami, his idea, his purpose was we develop our love of Krishna. He said we shouldn't be so concerned about all these things. As again he said at that time, they never went to the moon. So 400 million miles away, further away than the sun. So much difficulty that caused for some devotees because they saw it on the TV. Now here in India, they went on their way to the moon again, yes? Fourth country, the US, Russia, China. Now India is joining that group. They went a few years ago, I think the spaceship didn't make it, crash landed or something, they said. How much did they spend this? 400 crores of rupees. You can't even get proper plumbing, Prabhupada would say, but we'll spend 400 crore rupees to take some spaceship to the moon. He said, but not the moon. Somewhere else they went. Moon is a heavenly planet. And he said, because it's there in the Shastra. No other reason was required. He called us in the room that morning. It's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, moon further away than the sun. Therefore, he said, I'm convinced. He was always convinced. I think in the US it was 1969, the first moon landing. And they were all watching the television in Prabhupada's room. They brought a television in. After a few minutes, Prabhupada saw it. And then he started talking. He said, you have seen the movie King Kong? He immediately said it was all bogus. He said, just like King Kong, a giant gorilla, vivid gorilla. He was hanging on the Empire State Building. None of it was real. Prabhupada said, same thing. But we're so convinced. In the meantime, all these people involved making so much money, living very nicely while everyone else can barely eat, getting worse and worse. One of those days he said to me, my godbrother, he said it this morning. Prabhupada called me in the room in the afternoon. Afternoon was his reading time, free time. Just like we have that time to read, to chant. Prabhupada had a schedule he followed. He wanted us to follow a schedule. Everything he asked us to do, he was doing it. That's the meaning of āśraya. He set the example for all of us. He called me in the room. I would always come in, offer obeisances, and sat up. And I went beside. Sometimes you're in front of his seat, sometimes beside. So I went very next to. It was very informal, kind of intimate. He looked at me. He said, we're not so advanced that we think I want to come back life after life and do service. He said, we're not so advanced. He said, we have to have that desire. I want to go back home, back to Godhead. And then he was finished. That's all he said. I always think that. Some of us, we say, we have that jingle, you know, the happy birthday jingle. Happy birthday. And then they say, may you never take birth again. That we want to go back home, back to Godhead. First, you have to have that desire. Don't be artificial. Oh, I just want to come here, serve life after life, even if I go to hell. I say that. Who means that? I want to get out of here. I can't tolerate this place. Maya, she's there everywhere you turn. Backside of Krishna. As soon as you turn away from Krishna, Maya's right there. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said Vrindavan is meant for nothing but austerity. He said if you want sense gratification, he told his disciples, go to Juhu. There you can enjoy sense gratification, not here in Vrindavan. We come here to Vrindavan. This place, everyone says, I sometimes put things on the social media, on Facebook, about Vrindavan. Well, Prabhupada said, every temple's like Vrindavan. Yes, but every temple's not like Vrindavan, not in Vrindavan. Prabhupada said, everything you do here 100 times, it's magnified. He said 1% becomes 100%. But that's also your sense gratification. So he said, this place is not for sense gratification. We know we have Prabhupada quotes. Sometimes I hear them in the morning, things he says about Vrindavan. To be here is such great fortune. But we have to accept the austerity. Otherwise, we're cheating ourselves. Prabhupada says that cheaters and cheated. He said, at one point, one of his disciples, Kirtanananda Swami, he asked Prabhupada, you should charge for initiation, $50. Prabhupada said, no, that's not our process. That's not Lord Chaitanya's process. And then 6 months later, he wrote Prabhupada again. He's thinking, you're making so many thousands of devotees. Imagine, $50. At that time, $50 was a lot of money, $50. Prabhupada said, you've already said that to me before, now you're saying the same thing. He said, no, we don't charge anything. Just your whole life, that's all. $50, what is that? He said, I could have made millions of dollars. He said, some of these charging $125, he said, for initiation. He said, I could have made so many devotees. $125, you do anything you want. He said, me? I said, no, you have to follow these regulative principles. And when you were with him, he didn't make any compromise for those that traveled with him. That day in Vrindavan, I'll never forget those words. It was the first time he called us all in together to chastise sleeping. And it was in Radha Damodar temple. It was November. It was cold. Brick buildings this thick, holding all that cold air, cold water to bathe. Fill up a bucket, it would take 5 minutes for that little thing of water to come into the bucket to bathe. Cold water on cold concrete surrounded by little cold walls. I remember it very well. It was very austere. He said waking up in the morning and taking cold bath. He said waking up before 4 in the morning, taking cold bath. He said it's not an austerity. He said it's common sense. He didn't even let it be an austerity. We're all thinking that's austere. He said, no, it's not an austerity. It's common sense. He said it's good for your health. What's better for your health than Krishna consciousness? Devotees, sometimes they like to put those things. Prabhupada said, the importance. What was at the top? Health. Then it was your chanting. Then there was service and reading, like I think in that order, right? Health, chanting, service, reading. Was that correct?
Health, sadhana, and service.
Sadhana and service, yes, in that order. But so they look at that health, and well, I need 10 hours to sleep for my health. That's not your health. Prabhupada talked about our spiritual health as well. to follow this program. He would say, I'm doing it. In Australia it happened. It happened within days of one another. I told that story recently. He called me in. We're all sleeping soundly. We had traveled 25 hours on a plane. So we had a big lunch, lots of dairy products in Australia, so many wonderful dairy products from the cows there. And after lunch, we're all sleeping, 4 of us in one room. So Prabhupada, he would have to walk past that room to go to the bathroom. And what did he hear? Nothing. Not a sound. He walks back. He doesn't hear anything. He knows. He always knew. We're sleeping. He said, you're worse than karmis. He said, they only sleep at nighttime. They work very hard during the day, he said, to provide for their families, to enjoy sex life. Not the devotees. He said, they're very comfortable. Prasadam is there, everything is there. Oh, he's sleeping very nicely. He said, I've been ringing the bell for hours. Might have been 2-3 minutes even. Hours. Sometimes he would say to me, years. He liked to make a point. He would make a point. But it was for our benefit. It was for our health, our spiritual health. Said once in Juhu, that place. Juhu is meant for sense gratification. Juhu reminds me of Los Angeles. It's like the Los Angeles of India, Juhu. Oh, everyone enjoying so nicely there. Even the devotees, huh? No, he went for the morning walk. He left from the tenant housing, came down. Everyone offered obeisances. One boy didn't. Stood there very nicely. And Prabhupada walked. He just looked at me, said, that's the beginning of his fall down. Not offering obeisance the beginning of his fall down. We say slippery slope. Prabhupada would say the razor's edge, Krishna consciousness. And that razor here in Vrindavan, 100 times sharper. What can be sharper than that, huh? But 100 times to be here in Vrindavan. Every day we have to pray, please allow me to stay here and render service. When we chant, we're asking for service. Prabhupada would see people chanting. Maybe some people are qualified to do that. For most of us, that whole chanting is to give us some service, some inspiration to do something for Krishna. Do something for Srila Prabhupada. This temple here, how many devotees? There's over 1,000 devotees. Over 100 brahmacharis. If Prabhupada saw all these people we hire in this place to do things we should be doing, what do you think he would say? He said it. Everywhere he went, he said it. In Mayapur, he said it. 6 o'clock in the morning, why is it so dirty? Everyone's chanting. He just shook his head. Use your common sense. Just like you're dressing the deity 6 o'clock in the morning. Others can be cleaning the temple 6 o'clock in the morning. Preparing the offering 6 o'clock in the morning. No, that's not my job. I'm Brahmin. I saw Prabhupada cleaning, Prabhupada cooking. We know he did everything. He told Paramahamsa and myself, he said, when I was in Vrindavan, sometimes I would have to go to Delhi with the publisher and the printing. He said in the winter time, sometimes it was so cold, there would be a thin layer of ice on the bucket. 4 o'clock in the morning. He would have to crack the ice to pour the water over his head. He called, after he called me in and chastised me. And where is Paramahamsa? He was sannyasi. Paramahamsa came into the room. Why are you sleeping? You're a sannyasi. And Prabhupada said to him, I saw you last night. We arrived at midnight. We hadn't eaten for hours. So 1 o'clock in the morning we're eating so much nice prasadam and sleeping very nicely. We had to get up at 4, but then after breakfast, we would take rest. Prabhupada called him in. You're a sannyasi, he said. He said, why are you sleeping? Paramahamsa made a big mistake. He started describing jet lag. Prabhupada looked at him. He said, I'm awake. He always made like he was just like us. He was just one of the devotees. He said, I'm not sleeping. I was also traveling. He said, I also took prasadam last night. He said, but you took so much. He said, you're a sannyasi. You should minimize your eating and sleeping. Prabhupada followed the rules and regulations. He followed the rules and regulations of sannyas. He saw the difficulty, sannyasis. In Calcutta, he said they have to stamp their forehead like butter, keep in a cool place. On the butter, here in the U.S., it always say, keep in a cool place. Otherwise, what happens? It spoils. Also for devotees, keep in a cool place. He meant no association with women. That's the cool place. He said men are butter, women fire. He was very strict. But more than anything, he wanted to push on this Krishna consciousness movement. He tolerated so much. When they would say, you're so strict, he would say, I'm so not strict. I'm so easy, he said. Otherwise, if I was strict, no one could do it. No one would be here. But he would try again and again and again. Again, days later, calling us. And when we arrived at the house in Perth, it was just a cottage, no temple. There were 4 of us, myself, his secretary, and 2 local Australian devotees there. We were there for 2 hours. Prabhupada rang the bell, I went in. He said, call them. So we all came in. We were all just sitting around. There's no temple, there's no deities, not even a little altar with photos on it, nothing. It was just a cottage, a beach cottage. So he knew what we were doing. Nothing. We were just thinking, we're on vacation. He called us in. He said, what is the program? So no one really understood what he meant. It was a moga. He was the one coordinating it. And he had programs in the evening. Professors coming, different politicians coming. And he said, well, this evening at 6 o'clock, and this person's coming. Tomorrow, Prabhupada said, no, what is the program? We didn't even understand. He was saying, what was the morning program? What are you doing? Sleeping? Just because you're somewhere else doesn't mean you don't have morning program. Everywhere you go, you have to have the morning program. Prabhupada called it the routine. This is the very foundation of Krishna consciousness, of our Krishna consciousness. This routine. It's too crowded in the temple. I don't want to go there. I can hardly breathe. Doesn't matter. Everyone should be at the morning program. This is the first thing Prabhupada established after he tricked everyone. He said that in Melbourne, Australia. He was particularly cheerful. Morning walks, you never knew what to expect with Prabhupada. He could go 2 hours walking, not say one word. Other times he'd be chanting japa. Sometimes he would ask questions. Sometimes he would preach philosophy. Sometimes he would just talk practical things. But that day he said, so, devotee, he's crooked or simple? I always knew Prabhupada. From the very first question he asked, I knew he has trick questions. I always knew he had trick questions. And you're never going to answer properly. No matter what you say, you're wrong. That was the trick. You're always wrong. He's always right. It's a lot like household life. Wife is always right. Even she's wrong, she's right. So guru's like that. Whatever he says, he's right. So, simple or crooked. And most devotees knew not to say anything. But Amoga said, he's simple, Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, oh? Again he asked, he's simple or crooked? Yes, Prabhupada, he's simple. Prabhupada laughed. He said, no, he's crooked. He said, just like all of you, I have tricked you into chanting Hare Krishna. Huh? Just chant Hare Krishna. We hear that all the time. No hard and fast rules. There's so many rules. Get over yourself. There are lots of rules. Stop with there's no hard and fast rules. Prabhupada has given us so many rules to follow in our chanting of Hare Krishna. And our business is to follow them. On that trip there to Perth, Australia, for me, it was, what is the word? Cathartic. Because it was all about the universe. Prabhupada's saying so many things every day. And we learned everything differently. You know, that's the one thing they pound you on your head in school. They teach you so much nonsense. So that's what we heard growing up, so much nonsense. And now everything is being torn apart by Srimad Bhagavatam, by Srila Prabhupada. On his morning walks, he would question everyone. I never got involved in those discussions. I was afraid. I wasn't intelligent enough. Didn't know the philosophy, didn't know science. I just knew how to serve. That's all I could do, serve. So I'm massaging him right next to a swimming pool at that same house, that nice vacation home where we had no program. And I'm massaging him. And then Prabhupada said to me, so, he said, we understand Krishna, Supreme Personality. We understand the Father through the Mother. Shastra, he said, is the Mother. Of course, I agreed. I'm happily massaging. Everything's very nice. Wonderful service I have with Prabhupada. Wonderful place. There's a swimming pool, nice prasadam. Life is good. And then he said to me, so what do you think? What would the scientists say? You can only know who your father is by your mother. So I thought, all right, he's engaging me in this little debate. I didn't think. I said, you have to accept that your mother's telling the truth. It was not the right thing to say. Prabhupada exploded. How can you not accept the Shastra? I thought I was talking about scientists, but it completely like that. He said, how can you not accept Shastra? I said, accept. He said, you must accept. He said, if you don't accept, why are you here? And then he said, never mind. And I'm massaging. I just wanted a massage. I didn't want this. But he did it. So he let a few minutes go by. Everything was peaceful again. I thought, all right, he's And then again he asked me the same question. What would the scientists say? You can only know who your father is by your mother. I didn't learn anything. I mean, this happens, right? We can read. People can come up here and say, Krishna consciousness, you should do this, you should do this. We sit shaking our head and then we go do whatever we want. So I did the same thing. I was so bewildered by being Prabhupada chastising me, screaming at me. I couldn't even think. So again, I said the same thing. I said, you have to accept that your mother's being truthful. Why are you here? If you don't accept Shastra, what are you doing here? He said, just leave. And I'm massaging. He said, I don't want to discuss this anymore. I thought, good. Because I have no qualification to discuss anything. I thought, very good. And he got quiet. He was very quiet. He was so upset with his nonsense. I'm with him every day for 2 years, and I couldn't even understand the philosophy. 2 years of listening to him, sitting in front of him for 700 classes. I knew nothing. I still know nothing, but I know whatever I do know is coming from his words, whether it be in his books, his conversations, whatever it is. I know nothing except what he told me. And at this point, I'm just trying to do that every morning. I don't know, maybe some of you get up very early in the morning. For me, it's not easy. I have difficulty falling asleep at night, so much agitation all day long, so many devotees, so much disturbance, so many things going on. I have an alarm set. As soon as it wakes up, I think, have to go. That's all I think to myself. I have to be there. Why? Well, because it's good for me. Also because he said you're supposed to set an example. That's my number one reason. I have to set an example. I have to be there every morning. And then I go and it's so much wonderful there to see Krishna Balaram. How blessed we all are to get up in the morning, to come to Prabhupada's temple. The temple, he spent so much time, every detail. But every detail is there all the time. If he saw a fan unnecessarily on, he'd say, why is the fan on? If he saw a pigeon making a nest, why is that happening? Why are you letting that go on? Not my job. That saying was very big in the United States. Not my job, not my job. Everything is your job. No difference. Everywhere Prabhupada went when he saw mess, why? He said, why is this garden, why is the lawn not clean? Everyone just look at Prabhupada, well, we don't have a gardener right now. He's surrounded by 50 devotees. And he'd look, no one to do. So many devotees, no one can do it. He expected anyone could do anything. It's your duty when you see it. Don't think somebody else should do it. Do it. I always say Prabhupada invented that, just do it. Nike, they stole it from Prabhupada. People would come in and complain. He'd say, just do it. Why are you complaining? Why are you criticizing? Do it. So then he had one of those programs, the evening program. Very nice teacher came in. He was called secondary school, I guess, up to 8th grade levels. He was a nice gentleman. Came in with Prabhupada. He was respectful. And Prabhupada, if someone was a teacher, Prabhupada, he didn't mince words. Your duty is to teach Krishna consciousness. To teach people you're not this body, very basic things. He'd say, but no, everyone is 4th class. Everyone is fourth class. And then you also are fourth class. Me and Paramahamsa were on the side of the room thinking, oh, this poor man. Prabhupada was blasting him. But the man was humble. He was actually listening. He was hearing. He said, well, what can I do? How do I become first class? He said, you have to hear from the pure devotee. This is our business. And then the man said, well, who is the pure devotee? And Prabhupada pointed to Paramahamsa. He said, they're pure devotees. We just elbowed one another. I said, yeah, right. He didn't say, I'm the pure, you have to hear from me. No, he said, hear from them. Of course, what is our business? To repeat what you hear from him, the pure devotee. Not water it down. Prabhupada said, don't water it down. We say there's so much water in this milk, it's not even white anymore. It's just water. Prabhupada didn't care about numbers, because if you just have one pure devotee, he can change the whole world, just like Prabhupada did. That's why I always said, way back in 72, 1 year after I was initiated, he was already saying, boil the milk. Everyone was here. Make them become first class. That's what we want, first class. No second, third, fourth class. But he was always merciful at the same time. How to balance those things. That's management. How to know what to do, when to do it, how to do it. But certainly leaders, they have to inspire by doing themselves. That's leadership. I sent that leader, what a leader, who are the qualifications of a leader. Not such an easy thing. Anyway, we have a few minutes left. Anyone has any questions, comments? Is everyone awake? He sent one boy away. Right in the middle of class, Prabhupada said, go, you're sleeping. Go to the back. Even in Prabhupada's class, we're so fallen. Me, if I had to pinch myself, I wouldn't sleep. I never had to pinch myself. But I always, I could be a million miles away, but you'll see I looked attentive. I always tried to look attentive at class, even if I was daydreaming. Hare Krishna. I'm paying attention. I'm actually looking for a letter from Prabhupada. This was 1974, December 31st, the very last day. Prabhupada says, any householder devotee who is working full-time with his wife as a Sankirtan book distributor temple managerial duties, artists, cook, etc., shall be provided food, shelter, and other bare minimum necessities. Not even bare necessities. He says bare minimum necessities by the temple itself. They should not cook their own meals separate from the temple meals. If they have children, some minimal allowance may be given according to the number. If they want anything extra or over the above what the temple president sees as absolute necessity, then they should work outside. The temple cannot pay for anything beyond bare necessities. And definitely the BBT cannot pay any salary to anybody. Our philosophy is simple living and high thinking, not sense gratification. The temple presidents and leaders, elder students, must show this by example. Temple or ashram means for renunciation and renounced persons. If one is engaged in self-realization process, then his material necessities become almost nil. Persons who do not like this can work outside. Then he says something very important, which at that time, regarding food stamps and welfare, if we have to fabricate some lie, that is not good. It can be done only if it is completely honest. So this first qualification devoted, honest. But Prabhupada's time, I was one of those, I knew what it was like. I traveled with Prabhupada as a grahasta. My wife had a little room in Los Angeles, child was there. Temple, everything, see, that's also management. And of course, bigger something gets, the more difficult it is to do. But he said prasadam should be so tasty, no one even considers eating outside of the temple. Here there's always battles, even the deity offerings. We won't get into that. But Prabhupada, first thing he taught me when I was with him was how to prepare his lunch. And his lunch was very, very sattvic. Wasn't passion. Wasn't hot. Little spice. Little chili was there. Not so hot that you have to start eating bananas in the midst of your meal because your whole mouth is on fire. But they say that. No. Everyone has an opinion. I only know Prabhupada's opinion. His opinion was you do like this. For 3 days he showed me how to use that cooker. For 3 days. And I went on for 2.5 years. And 2 of those years I cooked in that cooker for him. I can tell you honestly, no one used that cooker more than I did. It just didn't happen. Many people used it. But I literally cooked in that cooker hundreds and hundreds of times. Not once did he criticize what I prepared for him. And he ate very nicely. He ate in the evening very nicely. And I used spices, but I used them little bit, little of this, little of that. I wasn't an expert cook, but somehow or other I satisfied him. Because if he wasn't happy, he'd let you know. He wasn't afraid to say this is, and I saw it every time I brought him the Maha plate, Rajbhog offering. Every time I brought it to him, he complained about it. If I brought it to him now, what would happen? Every time I brought it, he complained. So he's not complaining for himself. He's complaining for the deities. Dal is like mud. Chapatis are useless. This is how he commented. And I can go tell people, oh, that's a different. That's a different. No difference. Nothing is different. This is Prabhupada's places. These are his temples. And this temple, more than any other temple, is his temple. Our business is one business, to satisfy Srila Prabhupada. Because if he's satisfied, everyone here will be satisfied. And if he's not, no one here is going to be satisfied, no matter how hard you try. That's the temple. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you.